Last spring, a student at one of America's most prestigious prep schools, Choate Rosemary Hall, was arrested by police at Kennedy Airport as he was returning from Venezuela with $300,000 worth of cocaine. What wasn't known at the time was that perhaps as many as 50 out of a total of 1,000 of his schoolmates had chipped in more than $5,000 to get in on the Venezuelan coke buy. What also wasn't known was that it wasn't the first time that student had gone to Venezuela to buy drugs for his schoolmates. The great Venezuelan coke buy was still topic A when Principal Charles Dye addressed returning students in September.
Last spring, when we expelled 14 students for trafficking in cocaine, we were front page news across the country because of our reputation. I assume that you, no more than I, wish to be identified with the newspaper language used to indict us all. Spoiled preppies, too much privilege, too much cash, adolescent pawns for criminals, self-centered elites. But unless we can demonstrate convincingly that those words do not accurately characterize us, they may, in fact, become our reputation.
For almost 100 years, Choate Rosemary Hall in Wallingford, Connecticut has drawn students from the top ranks of American society and prepared them to be leaders, John F. Kennedy and Adlai Stevenson among them. It offers the best education money can buy. To live on campus costs nearly $11,000 a year. Day students are charged almost $7,500. Last year, Derek Otis was a senior at Choate.
There was a lot of drug use. There were certain rooms where people would go to smoke or to drink just because those would be away from faculty. Dorms would usually be drug dorms or not drug dorms, or drinking dorms or not drinking dorms. So people picked and chose their dorms.
And it was that obvious?
I'd say it was very obvious. I mean, not just for students, but for everyone.
Why do you think that kids would come to this school and use drugs here?
Why do kids use drugs anywhere in our society? Why do adults, artists, athletes, business people? Drugs are endemic in the American society. You can't go into any school, public, private, university. Drugs are everywhere.
However, Choate has a special problem. Last spring, 17-year-old Derek Otis was arrested for possession of cocaine. Out on bail, he faces charges that could put him in prison for 15 years to life. On Good Friday of Easter weekend, Derek left his Meriden, Connecticut home with about $5,000 of his schoolmates' money. He told his parents he was going to visit a friend in upstate New York. Instead, he came down here to Caracas, Venezuela, and using his classmates' money, checked into the best hotel in town for the long Easter weekend. His girlfriend from Choate, 18-year-old Kathy Cowan, was with him. They lounged by the pool during the day, and at night drank at the bar and danced to the Latin rhythms. Derek also bought from a contact arranged by another Choate student 3/4 pound of high-quality cocaine. The street value in New York, some $300,000. If that shocks you, there's more. 6 weeks earlier, Derek had flown down here to spend spring vacation with his best friend from school, an American whose family lives here in Caracas. During that break, they had made their first buy. Derek had collected about $3,000 from classmates at Choate, and he had returned to New York with about 1/2 pound of cocaine passing through customs undetected. On this second trip, with about twice as much money collected from even more students, Derek would once again board a plane with the cocaine hidden, but this time, his luck was about to run out.
We picked up the bags and started to walk toward the checkout booth, and immediately we were stopped by someone with a badge. They showed us a badge. And right there, my heart came up into my throat, and I knew that the whole little charade was known. It was over.
What did you think when they put those cuffs on you?
I felt really destroyed. I felt completely at their mercy. I mean, 5 minutes before, I thought I was on top of the world. And I was all set, nothing was going to get to me. And 5 minutes later, I had no power,
Derek Otis was the only student involved in the cocaine scheme who would talk to us on camera. His lawyer was with him during the interview, and we agreed not to question him about his prior drug use or some of the details of the Venezuelan coke deal.
The original thought to go down didn't come from you.
Part of it came from me, but it was a group effort.
Was it difficult to raise the money?
No. No. I didn't have to go asking people for money. I mean, everyone knew what was going on. So people came to me, and money was no problem.
Derek was not your average Choate student. He was a day student on scholarship. His father services vending machines, and his mother teaches at a public school.
Had you ever connected your son with cocaine before?
Never.
No.
I always thought of cocaine as a rich person's drug, and we certainly weren't rich, and Derek had always very little pocket money, usually none at all. He had money for gas, and that was it.
If you're in high school and you come from working class parents, you might get a six-pack. That's excitement. In an environment that Derek was in, they had more money, so they could afford more expensive toys.
When you're at a school, say like Choate, giving, say, your roommate or someone in a math class or your physics class or something, a little bit of money to buy cocaine, it really doesn't seem like the major deal it is.
This student, who agreed to an on-camera interview but who did not want to be identified and who asked that we give him a disguise, had also been a senior at Choate when he was expelled. He had been a student leader. He was popular, smart, and headed for a top college. He told us that buying drugs at Choate was no big deal.
You could always get basically any drug you wanted if you went to the right people, and something, would work out.
It didn't work out for Kathy Cowan, who went to Venezuela with Derek and was also indicted. They are the only two facing criminal charges, even though 14 students were expelled, and the school estimates about 50 were involved.
I wish I wasn't taking all the burden. But that's the way it is. I mean, I wasn't one stupid enough to agree to carry it.
Then why did you do it?
It gave me a social status, it gave me a lot of attention. I really thought the risk wasn't that great. And it was a neat little adventure.
That make you a big shot at Choate?
For a real short time, I suppose.
Did anyone come to you and say, Derek, don't do this, this is crazy?
Someone came to me and said, and pulled me aside and said, are you sure you want to do this? Think about this, what can happen to you? You can go to jail. But the next day they gave me money. So no one was really that serious.
The next day they gave you money to buy for them so they could get in on the deal?
Right.
It just seems so routine. I mean, you seem so matter-of-fact about it.
It was very casual at the time. It was much too casual.
News of the Choate Venezuelan coke buy spread to nearby Ethel Walker, a girls' prep school. One of the students who heard about it was 17-year-old Roanna Mead. Bill and Hansi Mead are Roanna's parents. They live on Squam Lake in New Hampshire, where Bill is an architect. They have 7 other children ranging in age from 6 to 24. Roanna Mead had been to 2 different high schools before she enrolled at Ethel Walker. She had had problems at each of them. One day last April, she and a classmate went down to Choate and contacted this student.
They knew that there was quite a bit of cocaine to be found at Choate. They already knew kind of that there was, however large an operation it was, and that it was rather plentiful, and they knew it could easily be gotten on a moment's notice on campus.
Roanna Mead bought some coke and returned to Ethel Walker, where she shared it with 4 other school friends. Later, Roanna was called on the carpet for another violation of the rules and blurted out her coke use. She was suspended and sent home to New Hampshire while the school debated her future. On the day Derek left for Caracas on his second cocaine buying trip, the phone rang in New Hampshire.
The school called and found I wasn't home, and then got a hold of Ro and then told her she'd been expelled.
Roanna disappeared, and for the next 6 weeks, the Meads searched everywhere. They finally found her, hanging from her secret treehouse in the woods. Bill Mead read us the note she left behind.
She said, "Dear people, I am sorry. My heart is so full of remorse. You all made me realize what love is, what caring is, and I'm sorry I had to really learn it by pushing cocaine on 4 of the people I really cared for. But now, as I've made a decision, I must say to you that life is wonderful. Don't let drugs get into your life. They're only temporary in making you feel good. I hate to leave because I love life so much, but my soul is full of guilt, and I am too weak to overcome it. I say to all parents, just always reach out, put your arm around these kids so that they understand always how much you love them, and that nothing they do is worth the ultimate punishment that some of them go through. And this is all avoidable, and it was a horrible mistake, and it didn't need to happen."
Were you all surprised about the cocaine deal?
Surprised about the cocaine deal? You better go on and tell me what
Were
you're
you at all
referring to.
surprised that students from your school would fly to Venezuela and buy cocaine and bring it back and sell it on campus?
I'm not surprised that young people are involved with drugs. That would be a bizarre incident for 2 students to become involved in international drug trafficking, if indeed that's the case. As you would understand, I'm not at liberty to speak about any specifics when there's litigation pending.
Charles Dye has been the principal of Choate for 12 years.
Before this incident last spring, how many students were actually expelled for drug use?
Last year, we dismissed, until April 20, a total of 4 students.
Wrong. A total of 7 students were expelled.
How many were dismissed because of drug use?
I don't know how many of the 4. I don't know the circumstances. I would have to turn to my colleagues who are responsible for discipline and ask them. But
Wouldn't you know if 3 or 4 of them had been using drugs? I mean, wouldn't that be a problem?
1 student using drugs is a problem.
But it wasn't 1 student using drugs. 3 out of the 7 who were expelled before the Venezuelan incident were expelled for drug use.
Students told us that if they had a drug problem, if they had a friend who had a drug problem, they felt they had no one to turn to.
One of the best things that we're doing at this school, Ed, is a group called peer counselors. And the peer counseling group is an effort to say to students, look, if you're worried about a friend, talk to this peer counselor. Maybe the peer counselor can then get that friend to one of our regular counseling staff, or to someone else who would be appropriate to help in that instance. The instinct has to be to help. How can we help before a youngster gets into trouble?
But wasn't one of the peer counselors last year involved in the cocaine deal?
You have knowledge that I don't. Why don't you go on and tell me more?
Well, one of the peer counselors was involved in the Venezuelan cocaine deal.
I'm afraid I'm not aware of that at all. I'd be astounded if a peer counselor had been involved.
Well, he was,
Yeah.
and admitted to everyone else.
I think you probably want to check your facts again.
We did check our facts.
You're just not accurate.
A peer counselor had been involved. In fact, 2 of Choate's peer counselors put up money for the Venezuelan cocaine deal. While it is a fact, as Mr. Dye says, that drugs in school are an everyday problem, Choate doesn't represent itself as an everyday school, and these are not everyday students. Could Choate, which had so much to lose, have done anything about its drug problem before it became what Mr. Dye called international drug trafficking?
What could Choate have done to prevent it?
Bring it out in the open and not worry about have a reputation as being a perfect school where they have no problems, because that's really not realistic.
Kid Crack, Brooklyn, New York.
A lot of people sell crack. The thing is to own crack and have people sell it for you. You gotta save up while you sell for someone else. You gotta think things out for yourself. That's like a gift to me. That's what I can do think and figure.
When I was that age, the jobs for teenagers were helping in the yard and babysitting and delivering newspapers. Good evening. I'm Connie Chung. Times have changed. Our first story tonight is about a kid who started selling his product at the tender age of 8. He owned his own business at 14. He says he was making as much as $15,000 a week selling the hottest item around, crack cocaine. Now, how could a kid not even old enough to drive a car run a sophisticated drug operation? You're going to see how, with the help of people who know him, including the boy's mother. The boy is in rehabilitation now and didn't want to appear on television, so we asked a young actor to speak his words. Everything the actor says to you, the boy said to us. And what he says will tell you more about the drug problem in America than any statistic or any study. Because the answer to the problem isn't out there somewhere, it's in here, it's inside the mind of a kid. And that's where you're about to go.
What do I want to say about myself? My name means king. I looked it up in the encyclopedia. That's how I think of myself, as a king.
When he first came into the facility, he came in with a real tough image. He's really angry of what he survived as a little kid. His father left when he was really young, abandoned him. His mother worked a lot. He was left.
I made a lot of money in drugs. That went. I didn't want anything anyway. I didn't buy a car because I wasn't old enough to drive. I bought shoes and stuff. You don't know how it is with me. I've been in rehab a long time now.
Tell me, what kind of baby was he?
A crier. He was a crier.
Cute.
Oh, he was adorable. As a matter of fact, he was my prettiest baby. And not being a mother saying that, everybody said that, you know, when he was born. He's such a pretty baby. He should have been a girl, you know.
He's a little guy, and he almost looks maybe a couple years younger than he really is.
Yeah. And I think that's why he got away with doing what he was doing for so long out on those streets. Because nobody realized that somebody that little or that young would be doing something like that.
You mean the authorities?
Yeah. I really think that's why he got away with a lot. Before that one time that he was arrested.
I mean, you're saying that the police probably never suspected that this little guy was selling drugs.
Yeah. But then they start taking on the form of a pusher, you know. Not a pusher, well, dealer, whatever. The hooded jackets, the hat over the hood, the collars up, you know, and just dirty looking. He'll always look dirty to me. Even his skin was so dark. He just looked very dirty to me all the time.
Yo! All right, little man, what's up? This is a pleasant surprise.
He was a very bright, bright child. He picked up everything very fast. Anything that was given to him to do, or, you know, he would pick it up right away.
You know I'm taking a chance with you, you know that?
Of course, man.
You're not lying to me about anything.
Swear to God, Papa, I'm not.
I hope not. I have some rules. I don't ever want to hear about you cutting my throat.
I would never do that.
Because I will come looking for you.
I know you will.
And I don't want you to come within 10 feet of me unless you got business with me. You understand that?
Absolutely.
You understand that?
Fine, man, right.
All right, you're going to be just fine, little man.
To not cut his throat. What that means is, don't move in on my spots.
What's up, man?
Like, if he's selling on 49th Street, I can't sell there. I'd have to find my own spots, which I did, which was easy. How I met Popeye was he used to come to my house with my older brother. Can I smoke? I used to wake up at night, and I used to go to the kitchen to get something to drink or watch TV.
Yeah, that's looking real nice.
Yeah, right. Turn it now. Just turn it.
And I'd find them there cooking up crack.
All right. Cúcala, 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 que ella sabe. Cúcala. Hey, come on, turn. There you go.
There you go. I got it.
Yo, man, your brother's scoping us out.
It's all right.
How you do it? You let it cook, and then you pick up the jar, and you take a wet cloth, and you pat the bottom, and it sizzles and all that. And then you take it, and you shake it around, and you put it back down for another few minutes, and you let it cook. You gotta watch out, it doesn't get that hot. A lot of times the bottle breaks. You put the wet cloth on it, and the whole thing explodes, because it gets too hot from the wetness in the water and everything. It just explodes on you. And because of that, I stood back real far when I was watching them. I wouldn't even go and tell my parents.
Off and on, I sold drugs for about 8 years. Loose joints, coke, whatever. Started smoking reefer with my brother when I was 6. I'm 14. I ran my own business for 3 months. I sold crack. I was taught to sell down to 14-year-olds. Nobody younger. No, I'm sorry. I could sell reefer, though, to an 8, 9-year-old. A lot of people sell crack. The thing is to own crack and have people sell it for you. You gotta save up while you sell for someone else. You gotta think things out for yourself. That's like a gift to me. That's what I can do. Think and figure. My plan was to own my own drugs from Popeye, so he could trust me. And after a while, I'd be successful and have my own juice. Juice is knowing people and having money.
Popeye gave me a play. Means he gives you more than what you have. I'd put it in smaller vials and sell it for more. We I had a closet, and I used to stick it in the overcoats that my mom and father would never wear since it was in the summertime. They weren't going to wear it, so I'd take the crack and I'd stick it in there. After you start your business off, you cannot enter the streets with a whole big amount of money on you or any drugs. You cannot enter the streets like that.
Crack is a very, very effective item. It is probably one of the best marketed items ever. It is cheap and it's effective. It markets itself. That's what's so great. It doesn't require advertising. It doesn't require somebody to go out and get hooked after investing thousands of dollars. It's just out there. So it doesn't even take a kid with a gift, even though this kid thinks he's got a gift. He doesn't have a gift. The gift that he's got is he's got the easiest item to peddle. He's got crack. And he might not have such an easy time trying to sell Plymouths.
When did you first notice that something was going on with your son?
It wasn't for a long time. A long time. I don't think I wanted to know. And see, that's the bad part about parents. They don't want to know. They don't want to open their eyes to what's going on. They feel if they don't look at it, it's going to go away. Doesn't.
Heavy downpours, gusty winds, and hail. Scattered thunder showers will also rain in parts of the south, except for some cloudy sections of coastal California. And
You got 25?
Yeah, stand over there.
All right.
Drugs are hardly ever sold on corners. They're sold in apartment buildings and in the middle of the block. The best place is in the middle of the block. If the cops come in this way, you can jet down this way. If they come in this way, you can jet down the other way. If they come in both ways, you go up. So you always have a place to go. Put that down.
All right. Thanks a lot, Bill.
Partly sunny, 87 degrees. Orlando, partly cloudy, 93. Thunderstorm.
I got up one morning and I went to the window and I looked out, and there's my son walking up and down the block, and I'm watching, and one person would walk over to him and there'd be an exchange or something, and then that person walk away, and then another person would walk over and there'd be another exchange. And I said to myself, oh my God, he's dealing drugs. I went out and I called him over and I said to him, you f***ing junkie, you were dealing drugs. You're dealing drugs. No, I'm not. What are you calling me a junkie for? I'm not dealing drugs. Get in there. Get in the house. Get in the house. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. And I dragged him into the house. And then, of course, the screaming, the yelling, the denial. He denied it. I'm screaming, I seen it with my own eyes. How can you deny something that I seen? And you don't know what you seen. I said, you don't know what you're doing to me. He didn't care. They're on these drugs, and they don't care. And my blinds on the front of the building were closed after that. I never would look out the window again.
It was the summer, and the question for the mother wasn't, is my son dealing drugs? It was what to do about it. So like many parents faced with the same situation, she pulled the blinds down and did nothing. And while she had no idea what to do next, her son knew exactly how he would proceed. Push on, expand the business, more crack, more customers, more money, and more risk.
I used to go to Lower Manhattan just to walk around before I was in business, just to think. And I was looking up at one of the buildings, and I looked up, and there was this big window, and there was this guy just looking out, thinking like that. I could see him clearly. For some reason, I was able to see him real clear, and everything just went blank. And all I did was see him. And I turned around to myself and I told myself that one of these days, you'll be like that. Just like that, having control. I just wanted to control the streets. Control.
The 14-year-old is not thinking about jail. He's not thinking about the inherent dangers of the drug trade. He's not thinking about the fact that he may be dead next week, because it's moment to moment. And right now, I've got more money in my pocket than my parents do. And look how big that makes me.
I eventually had a spot on 53rd near 4th. I had a spot on 49th and 8th. I had a spot off 52nd and 5th. And I also had a spot right on 49th. And I had a spot in Sunset Park.
His vision of himself was being a low-life nothing. And he saw being a drug dealer would make him something. Make him somebody. He saw the money, he saw the cash, he saw the gold, he saw the cars, and he said, that's what I want. I don't want to be one of these rejects. I don't want to be a lowlife. I want to be successful.
I didn't do anything. When you got your own business, you don't do anything. All you need to do is hold the money. It's incredible the way you start off with nothing and you end up making thousands of dollars a week. Having people respect you, having people protect you, having people listen to every word you say. It's incredible. The cops would pass around maybe once every half hour. We had it down pat until the end, because then they started coming around more. But in the beginning, they would pass around every half an hour. So we try to do as much as we can in a half an hour, and then we'd make everybody get out of there, chasing them. Get out of here, get out of here. And they'd scatter.
He knew how to play the game. See, he started out, instead of playing ball, he was doing drugs. And there's a whole game that goes along with that. And the game is, what will it take for me to be able to get away from the cops, be able to have lookouts, be able to have my runners, be able to pay them off, be able to get money to buy my own drugs, to supply my own men. How will I do that? That is his game. That's their game.
What are we as criminal justice people going to do? Are we going to tell this kid, look, kid, go out, go to high school, learn a trade, maybe get your degree, and what's going to happen? We're going to get you $250 a week, and we're going to tax you. When this kid is 14 years of age, he's out on a stoop outside his home, and he's pulling in $1,000 to $2,000 a week. Who's smart? I don't know.
How many times do you think you tried to stop him?
I couldn't even count the times. We tried everything. We had big spikes. We nailed the windows shut. We changed the lock on the front door that you needed a key to get in, a key to get out, and I would always have the key on me. Tried everything to lock him in that house, and he got out. It was a business. To him, it was a business. And as a matter of fact, there was one time that he came in and asked my husband and I why we wouldn't deal, because there were other parents dealing, and he couldn't understand why we wouldn't do it. We don't have money. We are poverty level. Of course, when you're poverty level, you always have a lot of bills hanging over your head. And he said we could pay up all the bills, we could have a new car, we could have all new furniture, we wouldn't have to worry about the rent if you dealt drugs. And I didn't yell and scream because I knew he wouldn't hear me if I yelled and screamed at him. And I just explained to him that I couldn't do anything that I would know was killing somebody else's child. And he said to me, well, if they don't come to you, they'll go to somebody else and buy it. I said, well, then let somebody else sell it to them.
Popeye just sold me 358 vials.
Freeze! Up against the wall. Heads up.
I didn't do nothing, man. What are you doing?
Put your hands
I didn't do anything, man.
You usually hear the walkie-talkie when they're coming. This time I didn't. I remember a lot of times I'd be in bed and I'd think a hell of a lot. Even when I was getting high, I'd be thinking. I used to think about which way my life was headed. And I'd like watch TV. Did you ever see one of those McDonald's commercials with all the kids? You know, I wondered how it'd be to do that. Nobody has fun like that these days, man. You know what I'm saying? You don't get a whole group together, go down to McDonald's, joke around, laugh, do your schoolwork. It just doesn't happen that way. That's just not life. That's a fantasy world. That's a different country. Whichever way my life was headed wasn't that way.
I don't know what's going on in this kid's head right now. You don't know what's going on in this kid's head right now. And I'll bet you his mother doesn't know, and I'll bet you that his drug counselors don't know exactly what's going on in his head right now. I don't care what this drug program does for him or does to him. When he comes out, he's going right back to where he started. He has got to want to be better, and he's going to have to want to be better every day for the rest of his life when he walks out of that door.
Like I said, I've been here for a long while now. I'm clean. That's good. I'm ashamed of what I did to my parents. But I had a lot of power out there. I still think about the juice. I still got like this urge to want to sell. When you're out there and you're selling, all you see is money, power, and control. Nothing's wrong. A lot of times that does go through my mind. Still.
First Lady Nancy Reagan is the one who coined the phrase, just say no.
Well, I really don't think Nancy Reagan has ever been in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? I really don't think she's ever come to a neighborhood like where I lived and tried to tell these kids, just say no. Because they'd laugh at her.
This is a mess that we never bargained for. We, at least I, sort of look at things in terms of BC and AC, before crack and after crack. There are jurisdictions in the United States that really haven't experienced the devastating effects of crack yet. I'm telling everybody that it's out there, and whether you realize it or not, it's coming.
It's like living a nightmare. And you wake up to a nightmare. It's terrible. It's the most horrible thing that I think a mother could ever go through, besides losing a son, is to have a son turn to drugs.
With us now, the mother of the boy in our story. We're not using her name to keep the anonymity of her son and her family. And Robert Stutman, the head of the Drug Enforcement Agency's New York office. Thank you for being with us. Tell me, what was your reaction to our story about your son?
It was very upsetting. You know, to relive what had happened. I thought it was well done, and hopefully it'll help somebody out there.
Do you think it will?
I don't think it would help any kid that's using drugs today, but I'm hoping that maybe it'll reach some of the parents.
Your son actually had the same reaction. We showed the story to him, and he said, I don't think this is going to get any kid to stop using drugs. What do you think your son's chances are when he leaves the rehabilitation center?
That's up to him. That is really up to him.
The young man came across to me, and I may be wrong, but just by looking the piece, and that's the only advantage I have, as more of a drug trafficker than a drug user. Something he said in the piece bothered me. After 18 months, he still, when he thought about selling dope, missed the juice. He still missed the thrill of being boss. And clearly, in the piece, he was the boss out in the street. I mean, this is a very bright, clever entrepreneur. Unfortunately, he had turned it in the wrong direction. Do I feel sorry for him? Of course I do. I feel sorry for his mother. I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for any family that gets involved. But my gut sorrow is for that 12, 13, or 14-year-old that he may have sold to the first time and may end up dead.
So what do we do? A 14-year-old kid who's able to sell drugs for thousands of dollars. What do we do?
Well, I think we do two things. Number one, we revamp our criminal justice system for adults and kids so that we have a criminal justice system that finally says if you violate the law and if you're caught and convicted, there is a swift, sure punishment for your actions. We somehow have to set up a system that says you are punished for the choices you make.
So we would have seen her son in jail today.
No, maybe what would have happened is the kids or the adults her son saw selling dope when he first started going to jail, then maybe the three of us would have never been here today.
What advice do you have for parents since you've been through this? Since you've been through hell?
Parents, they have a way of thinking the child's doing it to them. And that's what they say. Look what you're doing to me. You're killing me. Why are you doing this to me? They're not doing it to you. They're doing it to themselves. And to tell you the truth, they don't care.
The kids?
Yeah, if they're doing it to you. Because they're thinking, I'm not doing nothing to her. I'm doing this to myself, and it's not hurting me. But if you keep going after them and saying to them, look what you're doing to yourself. Look what you look like. I mean, children still have a little pride in themselves, you know, in the way they look. And look what you look like. You're going to die. Because if you're telling them, you're killing me, you're not going to die. This child is going to die on drugs, and you're still going to live. Your life's going to go on. So he's not killing you. He's killing himself.
Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate your coming in. And thank you, Robert Stutman of the DEA. We'll be back in just a moment.